if we now look at different types of map, what type of maps do we operate on? I have broadly defined or identified three main categories of maps: navigational maps, topographical maps, thematic maps, and then I've got this satirical maps up in the corner. When we talk about maps, it's very seldom we find clear one type maps. They have borrowed aspects from each other. So many maps include elements of these different types, but we can still identify them as being primarily this or that type. So we look at the navigational maps. Of course, their purpose is to navigate, and three classic examples: the road map, here a 1 to 200,000 representation of the area around Roskilde. We have the nautical maps of the lighthouses and how we can navigate between the islands of, in this case, the southern Zealand. And then we have aviational maps for flight lines to Copenhagen Airport. So all of these maps have the purpose of navigating. There's many different things that make them apart here in both the aviational and in the nautical charts. We emphasize that we can have true compass bearings, so we can navigate like this. Here we emphasize the number of each road junction and those things that we use to navigate by car. The topographical maps often can be difficult to distinguish between the road map and the locator map. In general, you can say that as the scale of the map goes down, it typically changes from being a topographical map to a road or locator map. So let's look at some examples here. If we look at these three classical topographical maps of Denmark, we have a 10,000 map where we have the smallest details. This is the most detailed map of Denmark. So we have the individual, also buildings, outhouses, small paths, so on. The classical paper map, the 1 to 25,000 map, or the 4 centimeter map, because 1 kilometer equals 4 centimeters on the map. We have all the main buildings, the property boundaries, and so on. And on the 1 to 50,000 map, or 2 centimeter map, we have not the individual buildings, but main road. We have the elevation information on all of them. So this one is primarily used for planning purposes, but still a classical topographical map. If we go over this and look at the 1 to 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, 200,000, what the one saw as a navigational map, we might call these road maps. And even further up, so we have 1 to a million, so a very small scale. We have what we might call locator maps. Maps that say, okay, where is this town in relationship to this town, and what's at a given location. Thematic maps describe the spatial distribution of some property. So I might say that the main difference between the topographical map, topos, place, graphical description, and the thematic map, the map that describes the theme, is that here the focus is on the theme, here the focus is on the location. So we have locator maps, so the theme of those are towns, or whatever we are locating. So we can use them to locate where is something compared to something else. We have both qualitative and quantitative maps. So maps of feeling of fear, might be a classical qualitative map, while statistical maps are classical quantitative maps. We have image maps, so in this case I'm using Woodward's definition, and an image, a satellite image, a aerial photograph, orthophoto, might be considered as maps. Technical maps can again be somewhat like topographical maps. They are typical at a very large scale, giving sewer networks or electrical networks or things like that. And then of course we have legal or political maps, or planning maps, cadastral maps, and so on. So those are the main types of thematic maps, and probably the maps that most people create themselves. Looking at image maps, just when is it an image, when is it a map? Here we have classical orthophoto. We have a LiDAR scanning. So this is a laser scanning from a helicopter, measuring the distance. So we have the highest object on the Earth, so we have the airplanes down here. So again, it's just a lot of laser measurements that have been given colors. We have a depiction of the thermo-infrared channel of the Landsat satellite, Landsat 7 in this case, where the digital values of this Landsat have been converted to colors representing temperature. So there's really no, in this case, interpretation of them, and we might therefore discuss that all of these are not really symbolic representations. This one is a pure numerical transformation, and so is this, where we have assigned a color range to digital values, and to some degree also this for the air orthophoto. The Korean land cover map is also a satellite dataset. It's derived also from the Landsat 7, but here we have classes, so it has been categorized. We have urban, ports, different categories here that are delimited based on interpretation of the satellite. So this one, although it's basically the same data set, comes from the same satellite, this one is a interpretation, and these objects are symbolic representations, while here in the other three cases we might say that there are no symbolic representations. They are just a computer-based transformation of digital values to colors. A classical thematic map is USGS's geological maps. So here we have North America and the main geological components of North America. One of these maps that have been given many prizes for its beauty and usability. So here we have the different types, but we can also see that although this is a geological map, we have state borderlines, we have rivers, so we have aspects from the other map types. So although it's really a map about geology, we also have these political boundaries on top of them. They're not there to show the relationship between political boundaries and geology, but to give the map reader a way of orienting themselves on the map. Saying, okay, this is Texas or whatever. The political map, so a map representing the political organization of a area. We have here Europe 1922, so a large Germany, Poland and so on. Again, a classic example of its time, although it's produced much later than the period it's given to here. So, the political map, simple coloring, importance is what is the name of the country, main water elements, and that's it. Statistical maps, a not so nice example, I can say that because I made that one, of the number of females per male, where we can see that we have these male areas and the female dominated areas. And this very beautiful map, which is a very complex map where 4 different aspects of life have been combined into one representation. So we have a shape of the head giving affluence, we have the mouth giving unemployment, we have the eyes giving urban stress, and then we have the colors giving the proportion of white in each area. What's interesting is, of course, that many of these are highly aggregated, but in the text following it there are numerical representations of these, so they can be translated into what is the unemployment rate and affluence, how at the school and things like that. So although it might look as a very qualitative map, it is basically a quantitative map with a very nifty way of using phase expressions to do a highly aggregation of many properties. And finally, another of my favorite maps, Fred Rose's Angling in Troubled Waters, so Europe disfound the beginning of the 19th century, where we have England angling in troubled water, that's the title of it here. We have Denmark as the cradle of most of the European monarchies. We have Russia, gigantic Russia, offering an olive branch of peace to Europe, and all these other characters of the European states in this period. So here if we read the explanation why the different countries have been depicted as they are, we have this down here in the corner. So a map, well, picture, yeah, one of these things where we are in the borderline between being graphical art and maps. So this was a short talk through of different map types and how we define the concept of maps. So thank you for watching. See you later. Bye.